I made my fortune by seeing what others refused to see. In 2005, 2006, 2007, while everyone was celebrating the greatest housing boom in American history, I was analyzing the data that showed the entire system was built on lies. I bet against the housing market when every expert, every banker, every government official said I was wrong. I was not wrong. The system collapsed exactly as my analysis predicted, and I made hundreds of millions of dollars while the rest of the world lost trillions. That experience taught me something profound about wealth. Most people do not lose money because of bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. They lose money because they refuse to see obvious problems, because they follow the crowd instead of thinking independently, because they make decisions based on emotion rather than analysis. Today I want to share 5 wealth destroyers that I see systematically draining the financial futures of millions of people. These are not hidden or obscure, they are obvious to anyone willing to look. But most people do not want to look. They would rather feel comfortable than be rich. Before I get into the specifics, let me explain how I think about wealth destruction. Every financial decision exists on a spectrum. On one end are decisions that compound positively over time, building wealth through the mathematics of growth. On the other end are decisions that compound negatively, destroying wealth through the mathematics of decay. Most people focus on the positive end. They want to know which stocks to buy, which investments to make, how to grow their money. But they ignore the negative end, allowing wealth destroyers to silently drain their potential while they chase returns. This is backwards. Eliminating wealth destroyers is more impactful than finding great investments. If you are losing 10% of your potential wealth every year to destructive decisions while gaining 8% on your investments, you are falling behind. Fix the destruction first, then worry about optimization. This principle guided my thinking during the housing crisis, and it guides my thinking about personal finance today. The first wealth destroyer is financing depreciating assets, and the worst offender in this category is the automobile. I have watched otherwise intelligent people systematically destroy their wealth by treating cars as symbols of success rather than tools of transportation. They finance $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 vehicles at interest rates of 5, 6, 7% or higher. They pay this interest on an asset that loses 20% of its value the moment they drive it off the lot and continues depreciating every single day they own it. Let me show you the mathematics that people refuse to see. A $50,000 vehicle financed at 6% interest over 60 months costs you $58,000 in total payments. But the wealth destruction does not stop there. That vehicle is worth perhaps $30,000 after 3 years and maybe $15,000 after 5 years when you finish paying. You paid $58,000 for something now worth $15,000. That is $43,000 of wealth destruction in just 5 years. Now multiply this across a lifetime. The average American buys 12 to 15 cars over their adult life. If each transaction destroys $40,000 of wealth, that is nearly $500,000 burned on transportation that could have been achieved for a fraction of the cost. And that calculation does not even include the opportunity cost of what that money could have become, if invested instead of spent. I drive a used vehicle I have for years. It is reliable, it is safe, and it transports me exactly as effectively as a vehicle costing 5 times as much. The people who mock this choice are the same people who will work until they die, because they systematically destroyed their wealth on depreciating status symbols. I prefer to be rich and drive a modest car than to look rich while being secretly broke. The second wealth destroyer is housing beyond your means. This one hits close to home for me because I watched the entire American economy nearly collapse due to housing excess. Millions of people bought houses they could not afford, convinced by bankers and real estate agents and government policy that home prices would rise forever. When the bubble burst, these people lost everything: their homes, their savings, their retirements, their futures. But even in normal times, without a housing collapse, buying too much house is one of the most effective ways to guarantee financial mediocrity. A house is not an investment in any meaningful sense. It is a consumption choice. Yes, housing prices generally rise over time, but so does the cost of everything else. Your house ties up capital that could be generating real returns. It costs you money every single month in mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance maintenance, and utilities. It is illiquid, meaning you cannot easily access the value if you need it. When I analyze housing as I would analyze any investment, the numbers are sobering. A $500,000 house with a 30-year mortgage at 7% will cost you over $1 million in total payments. Then add property taxes of perhaps $8,000 per year for 30 years. Another $240,000, add insurance at $3,000 per year, another $90,000. Add maintenance at 1% of value annually, another $150,000. Your $500,000 house actually costs you nearly $1.5 million over 30 years. If that house appreciates at the historical average of around 3 to 4% annually, it might be worth $900,000 to $1 million when you finish paying. You spent $1.5 million to own something worth $1 million. You destroyed $500,000 of wealth on shelter that could have been obtained for far less. I am not saying do not buy a house. I am saying buy the minimum house that meets your actual needs. Buy the smallest house in the best neighborhood rather than the biggest house you can technically afford. Keep your total housing cost below 25% of your income. Resist the cultural programming that tells you bigger is better, that your house reflects your worth, that you should stretch to buy as much as banks will lend you. The third wealth destroyer is high-interest consumer debt, particularly credit cards. This is the most mathematically devastating financial decision a person can make. And yet almost half of American households carry credit card balances. The average balance is over $6,000 at interest rates exceeding 20%. I have spent my career analyzing financial instruments, and I can tell you that there is no legal investment anywhere that reliably returns 20% annually. None. The stock market averages 10% over long periods. Real estate averages perhaps 7 to 8%. Bonds return 3 to 5%. But credit card companies charge 20% or more, guaranteed, compounding monthly against you. When you carry a credit card balance, you are effectively investing in reverse. Instead of compound growth, building your wealth, compound decay is destroying it. A $6,000 credit card balance at 20% interest, paying only minimum payments, will take over 15 years to pay off and cost you over $9,000 in interest. You will pay $15,000 for $6,000 worth of purchases. And during those 15 years, all the money going to interest payments is money that cannot be invested for your future. The solution is obvious and non-negotiable. Eliminate all credit card debt immediately. Sell things, take extra work, cut expenses to the bone. Do whatever it takes to get to zero balances as fast as possible. Then never carry a balance again. If you cannot pay for something in cash, you cannot afford it. This rule has no exceptions for consumer purchases. The fourth wealth destroyer is lifestyle inflation, the tendency to increase spending as income increases. I have watched this pattern destroy the wealth, building potential of people earning $200,000, $300,000, even $500,000 per year. Their income grows and their spending grows to match or exceed it. They end up on a treadmill, working harder and harder to maintain an ever-expanding lifestyle while saving nothing. The mathematics of lifestyle inflation are brutal. If you earn $100,000 and spend $95,000, you save $5,000 per year. If your income doubles to $200,000 but your spending also doubles to $190,000, you save $10,000 per year. You earn $100,000 more dollars and only save $5,000 more. 95% of your income increase went to consumption rather than wealth building. Now consider the alternative. If you kept your spending at $95,000 while your income doubled, you would save $105,000 per year. Same income increase, but now you save $100,000 more instead of $5,000 more. Over 20 years at historical stock market returns, that difference compounds to several million dollars. Several million dollars determined by whether you chose to inflate your lifestyle or keep it constant. When I made money from the housing crisis, I did not buy a mansion or a yacht or any of the things people expect from someone who made that kind of money. I lived essentially the same way I had lived before. My needs did not change because my bank account changed. The hedonic treadmill, the psychological tendency to adapt to circumstances and return to a baseline level of satisfaction, means that lifestyle inflation provides only temporary pleasure followed by permanent cost. The fifth wealth destroyer is speculation disguised as investment. I see this constantly. People who think they are investing but are actually gambling. They buy stocks based on tips from friends or social media posts. They chase whatever is hot, buying after prices have already risen dramatically. They trade frequently, paying commissions and taxes with each transaction. They convince themselves they have an edge when they have nothing but overconfidence. This is particularly relevant today with the rise of meme stocks, cryptocurrency speculation, and options trading by retail investors. People are treating the market like a casino, expecting to get rich quick through clever trades. Most of them will lose money. The mathematics guarantee it. Trading is a negative-sum game after costs. For every winner, there is a loser, and the house takes a cut from both sides through spreads, commissions, and fees. I have spent my entire career analyzing investments. I have access to data and resources that individual investors cannot match. I have made successful bets that generated enormous returns. And I can tell you that beating the market is extraordinarily difficult, even for professionals with every advantage. For amateurs trading on their phones based on Reddit posts, the odds are essentially zero. The solution for most people is simple. Stop trying to beat the market. Buy low-cost index funds that track the broad market. Hold them for decades without trading. Accept the market return, which has historically been excellent, and focus your energy on the things you can actually control. Your savings rate, your spending, your career. Let me tie these 5 wealth destroyers together with a principle that underlies all of them. Each represents a failure of rational analysis, a triumph of emotion over mathematics. People buy expensive cars because they want to feel successful. People buy too much house because they want to impress others. People carry credit card debt because they want things now rather than later. People inflate their lifestyle because they feel they deserve rewards. People speculate because they want to get rich quick. These emotional impulses are powerful, but they are also predictable. Marketers and advertisers spend billions of dollars exploiting them. Banks and car dealers and real estate agents are trained to trigger them. The entire economy is designed to separate you from your money by appealing to feelings rather than facts. My advantage in investing has always been my ability to set aside emotion and focus on data. When everyone was celebrating housing prices in 2006, I was looking at default rates and loan quality and leverage ratios. The data told a clear story that everyone else was ignoring because they did not want to see it. The same principle applies to personal finance. The data on wealth destroyers is clear. The mathematics is unambiguous, but people ignore it because they do not want to see it. Let me share some specific numbers that illustrate the cumulative impact of these wealth destroyers. Consider 2 people who both earn $75,000 per year for 40 years of working life. That is $3 million of lifetime earnings. The same for both people. Person A avoids all 5 wealth destroyers. They drive used cars, saving an average of $5,000 per year compared to person B, who always has a car payment. They buy a modest house that costs 15% of their income rather than 30%, saving another $8,000 per year. They carry no credit card debt, saving another $2,000 per year in interest that person B pays. They avoid lifestyle inflation, saving an additional $5,000 per year that person B spends on upgraded consumption, and they invest in index funds rather than speculating, earning 2% more annually through lower costs and better behavior. Over 40 years, person A invests $20,000 more per year than person B, a total of $800,000 in additional contributions. But the compound growth makes the difference even more dramatic. At historical returns, person A ends up with approximately $4.5 million. Person B, who earned the same income but fell victim to all 5 wealth destroyers, ends up with perhaps $500,000 same income, same economic environment, same opportunities. One person retires wealthy and free. The other retires poor and dependent. The only difference is the choices they made about the 5 wealth destroyers. I want to address something that people often say when confronted with this reality. They say that life is short, that they want to enjoy themselves, that saving everything for a retirement they might not live to see is foolish. This argument sounds reasonable but reflects confused thinking. Avoiding wealth destroyers is not about deprivation, it is about efficiency. A used car gets you to your destination just as effectively as a new car. A modest house provides shelter just as well as a mansion. Not carrying credit card debt does not reduce your quality of life. Avoiding lifestyle inflation does not mean living poorly. It means maintaining a comfortable lifestyle rather than an excessive one. And investing in index funds rather than speculating actually produces better returns for most people. The choice is not between enjoying life and building wealth. The choice is between efficient spending that builds wealth while providing genuine satisfaction and wasteful spending that destroys wealth while providing only temporary status signals. When you frame it correctly, avoiding wealth destroyers is the rational choice regardless of your time horizon. There is another dimension to this that I think about frequently. The financial system is designed to extract wealth from individuals and transfer it to institutions. Banks profit from your mortgage interest and credit card debt. Car dealers profit from your vehicle purchases. Investment firms profit from your trading activity. Real estate agents profit from your housing transactions. This is not a conspiracy. It is simply how the system works. Every participant is trying to maximize their own outcomes. Understanding this dynamic is essential to avoiding wealth destruction. When a banker tells you how much house you can afford, they are telling you the maximum amount on which they can profit from interest payments. When a car dealer offers attractive financing, they are structuring a transaction that benefits them more than you. When a financial advisor recommends active trading or complex products, they are often steering you toward options that generate fees for them. I approach every financial transaction with suspicion. I assume the other party is trying to maximize their benefit, often at my expense. This assumption is usually correct. It leads me to demand better terms, to question conventional advice, to do my own analysis rather than trusting experts with conflicting interests. Let me share how I think about major financial decisions before any significant purchase or commitment. I model out the full lifetime cost, including opportunity cost of capital. I compare multiple alternatives quantitatively rather than relying on feelings or impressions. I seek out disconfirming information, reasons why my initial inclination might be wrong. I wait, often for weeks or months, to ensure the decision is rational rather than emotional. This process has saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars over my lifetime. It is tedious, it is unglamorous. It requires saying no to things that everyone else says yes to, but it works. The mathematics always works for those who respect it. I want to give you some specific metrics to use in evaluating your own vulnerability to wealth destroyers. For vehicles, calculate your total annual transportation cost, including payments, insurance, fuel, and maintenance. Divide by your annual income. If this exceeds 10%, you are likely destroying wealth through excessive vehicle spending. For housing, calculate your total monthly housing cost, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, and utilities. Divide by your monthly income. If this exceeds 25%, you are likely destroying wealth through excessive housing spending. For credit card debt, the target is 0. Any balance carried month to month is wealth destruction. Calculate how much interest you paid last year. That number represents pure wealth destruction with no benefit to you. For lifestyle inflation, compare your current spending to your spending 5 years ago, adjusted for inflation. If your spending has grown faster than inflation while your happiness has not proportionally increased, lifestyle inflation is destroying your wealth. For speculation, calculate your investment returns over the past 5 years compared to a simple index fund. If you underperformed after accounting for time spent, stress experienced, and taxes paid on short-term trades, your speculation is destroying wealth. These metrics give you an objective measure of where you stand. Most people who do this analysis honestly are horrified by what they find. Good. Horror is an appropriate response to systematic wealth destruction. Let that horror motivate change. I will leave you with this thought. The financial crisis of 2008 did not destroy the wealth of people who were living below their means, investing conservatively, and avoiding excessive debt. Those people weathered the storm and emerged even stronger as they bought assets at depressed prices. The crisis destroyed the wealth of people who were over-leveraged, overextended, and overconfident. People who had followed the crowd into housing speculation and excessive consumption. The next crisis is coming. I do not know when or what form it will take. But crises always come. When it arrives, it will once again separate those who built genuine financial security from those who only appeared prosperous. The wealth destroyers I have described are not just inefficient in normal times. They are catastrophic in crisis times. They leave you vulnerable precisely when vulnerability is most dangerous. You have the power to eliminate these wealth destroyers from your life. You have the data showing their impact. You have the mathematics proving their cost. The only question is whether you will act on what you know or whether you will continue following the crowd into financial mediocrity. I made my fortune by seeing what others refuse to see and acting on it despite social pressure to conform. You can do the same in your personal finances. See the wealth destroyers for what they are. Accept the mathematics regardless of how it makes you feel. Act differently than the crowd. Build genuine wealth rather than the appearance of wealth. The choice, as always, is yours, but let me go deeper on something that I think is critical to understanding why these wealth destroyers persist despite their obvious costs. There is a psychological dimension that pure mathematics cannot capture. Humans are social creatures who evolved in small groups where status and reputation meant survival. Our brains are wired to seek status, to compare ourselves to others. To signal success through visible markers, the wealth destroyers I have described are almost all forms of status signaling. An expensive car signals success to other drivers. A large house signals success to neighbors and visitors. Consumer goods purchased on credit allow us to display success. We have not actually earned lifestyle inflation. Lets us demonstrate that we are moving up in the world. Even speculation can be a form of status seeking, the desire to be seen as clever and successful in our investment choices. This status seeking was adaptive in our evolutionary past. In a small tribe where everyone knew everyone, reputation directly affected survival and reproduction. But in the modern world, this wiring works against us. The people we are trying to impress with our expensive cars are strangers who will forget us in seconds. The neighbors we are trying to match with our housing choices are themselves trapped in the same destructive competition. The status we are seeking through consumption is illusory and temporary. I learned early in my career to detach my self-worth from external signals. When I was betting against housing, virtually everyone thought I was wrong or crazy. Banks that sold me credit default swaps laughed, as they took what they thought was free money. Colleagues questioned my judgment. Investors in my fund demanded to know why I was losing their money on what seemed like a foolish bet. If my self-worth had been tied to others' approval, I would have capitulated. I would have closed my positions to stop the criticism. Instead, I focused entirely on my analysis. The data said housing would collapse. The mathematics proved it. What other people thought was irrelevant to whether I was right or wrong. This same detachment is essential for avoiding wealth destroyers. You must be able to drive your used car past the luxury dealership without feeling inadequate. You must be able to live in your modest home while colleagues buy mansions without questioning your choices. You must be able to invest simply and boringly while others chase exciting speculation without feeling left out. This is harder than it sounds. The social pressure to conform to wealth, destroying behaviors is intense and constant. Advertising bombards you with messages that you deserve luxury, that you have earned the right to spend, that successful people buy certain things. Social media shows you curated images of others' consumption, creating false impressions that everyone else is living larger than you. Friends and family may actively pressure you to spend more, questioning why you are so cheap or what you are saving for. I have found that the best defense against this pressure is a clear understanding of your own values and goals. If you know exactly what you are trying to achieve and why, external pressure loses its power. When someone questions why I drive an old car, I do not feel defensive because I know exactly why I make that choice. It aligns with my values and goals. Their opinion is simply irrelevant. Let me share some additional observations about each wealth destroyer that might help you resist them. On vehicles, I have noticed that the intensity of attachment to cars varies dramatically by age and gender. Young men are particularly vulnerable to the car wealth destroyer because vehicles play such a large role in dating and social hierarchy during those years. If you are a young man reading this, understand that this vulnerability is being exploited. Car manufacturers know exactly which buttons to push. They design vehicles specifically to trigger your desire for status and attractiveness. Recognizing this manipulation is the first step to resisting it. On housing, I have noticed that the pressure intensifies at certain life transitions: marriage, having children, job promotions, reaching certain ages at each transition. There is cultural pressure to upgrade your housing. Resist this pressure. Your actual housing needs have not changed dramatically. A baby does not require 4,000 square feet. A promotion does not require a house in a more prestigious neighborhood. These are once masquerading as needs on credit card debt. I have noticed that it often begins with emergency purchases that people tell themselves they will pay off quickly. A car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected travel expense, then the balance lingers, then it grows, then it becomes normalized. If you currently carry no credit card debt, protect that status fiercely. Never let the first balance accumulate. Once you normalize debt, the wealth destruction becomes continuous and difficult to reverse. On lifestyle inflation, I have noticed that it often happens unconsciously. People do not decide to inflate their lifestyle. It just creeps up as small upgrades accumulate. A nicer restaurant here, a better vacation there, upgraded seats on flights, premium subscriptions. Each individual upgrade seems reasonable. Collectively, they transform a sustainable lifestyle into an expensive one that consumes all available income. The defense against unconscious lifestyle inflation is conscious budgeting. Decide in advance what percentage of any income increase will go to lifestyle and what percentage will go to savings. I recommend 80% to savings and 20% to lifestyle for any raise or bonus. This allows some enjoyment of increased prosperity while ensuring that most of the benefit goes to wealth building. On speculation, I have noticed that it correlates strongly with overconfidence in other areas of life. People who think they are smarter than average, who believe they can beat the odds, who have experienced success in other domains and assume it will transfer to investing. These people are particularly vulnerable to speculation because they genuinely believe they have an edge when they do not. The data on this is overwhelming. Professional fund managers with teams of analysts, sophisticated technology, and years of experience fail to beat simple index funds most of the time. What chance does an amateur with a phone app have? Close to zero. Yet the amateur often believes they will succeed where professionals fail. This is not rational analysis, this is ego masquerading as strategy. I want to share something about my own psychology that might be helpful. I am not naturally frugal or disciplined. I do not find pleasure in deprivation. I enjoy good things as much as anyone. The difference is that I have trained myself to weigh present enjoyment against future cost, using explicit mathematical analysis. When I see something expensive that I want, I do not just deny myself through willpower. I calculate what that money would become if invested instead. I think about what future freedom I would be sacrificing for present consumption. I imagine myself at 70 or 80, looking back at the choice. Would I rather have had the thing, or would I rather have the compounded wealth? This reframing transforms the decision from sacrifice to choice. I am not denying myself. I am choosing between two goods, and when framed that way, the choice usually becomes obvious. A car that will be forgotten in 5 years versus wealth that will provide freedom for decades. A larger house that will require more maintenance and expense versus capital that will work for me indefinitely. Credit card purchases that provide momentary pleasure versus the permanent cost of interest. Let me also address the argument that some wealth destroyers are necessary. People say they need a reliable car for work, so they have to buy new. They say they need a good school district, so they have to buy an expensive house. They say they had an emergency, so they had to use credit cards. Some of these arguments have merit in specific circumstances, but I find they are usually rationalizations rather than genuine necessities. A 3-year-old certified pre-owned car is just as reliable as a new car, sometimes more so because the early defects have been identified and fixed. Good school districts exist in areas with modest housing costs if you are willing to look beyond prestigious zip codes. Most credit card emergencies could have been handled differently with better planning and an adequate emergency fund. The question I always ask is whether there is a less expensive way to achieve the same genuine need. Almost always, there is. The expensive option is chosen not because it is necessary, but because it is desirable. That distinction matters. Necessities justify spending. Desires do not, at least not when the spending destroys wealth. I have been studying markets and economics for over 25 years. I have seen bubbles inflate and burst. I have seen fortunes made and lost. I have seen the best and worst of financial decision-making. And I can tell you that the principles I have shared today are as close to universal truths as exist in the financial world. Wealth destroyers will destroy your wealth. The mathematics guarantees it. You can choose to believe you are the exception, that you can carry credit card debt and still get rich, that you can inflate your lifestyle and still build security, that you can speculate and still beat the market. But you will almost certainly be wrong. The exceptions are rare enough to be essentially non-existent, or you can accept the mathematics and act accordingly. You can eliminate the wealth destroyers from your life. You can build genuine financial security that will survive whatever crises the future brings. You can achieve the freedom that comes from living well below your means and investing the difference. The path is clear. The destination is achievable. The only variable is whether you will walk the path or continue convincing yourself that wealth destruction is somehow necessary or acceptable. I chose to see what others refuse to see about the housing market. It made me wealthy. You can choose to see what others refuse to see about wealth destroyers. It can make you wealthy too. The only question is whether you are willing to be uncomfortable, to act differently than the crowd, to sacrifice present status for future security. That willingness is the difference between those who build wealth and those who merely dream about it.